and girls, Merry Christmas. I'm going to read Winston a story, and I think he might sleep all the way through it. Let's find out. The story is called The Hedgehog That Lost the Plot at Christmas. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, in a land called Bollington, there lived a stickly-prickly hedgehog. Now, Stickly-Prickly was a very careful hedgehog because he was covered with lots of sharp needles. When he came across the other animals in Bollington, he would stay as far away from them as possible. Because of this, most of the animals thought he was a very rude hedgehog, so they ignored him. However, they didn't realize that Stickly-Prickly was only doing this to prevent them from being hurt by his sharp, spiky needles. So unfortunately, Stickly-Prickly didn't have any other animal friends, and that made him very sad indeed. One Christmas Eve, the animals began putting up their decorations around Bollington. Painted Jaguar carefully hung up strings of lights over the branches of trees, while the frog jumped about, hanging ornaments from a big Christmas tree, a bit like this one. All of the animals were having a fun time, all of course except Stickly-Prickly Hedgehog. He looked at what was going on outside of his little house and said to himself, "Okay, Stickly-Prickly, it's time to do something about these sharp needles on my body. Maybe if I can make myself less spiky, the other animals won't be so afraid of me, and they'll let me join in the fun." And with that, Stickly-Prickly Hedgehog went into the front garden of his house and started rolling around in all of the leaves that had fallen. He rolled and he rolled and he rolled and he rolled about in them, believing that they would stick to his needles and make him less sharp and spiky. The frog, who was jumping up and down outside, helping to hang the ornaments from the big Christmas tree, saw what Stickly-Prickly was doing in the front garden. The frog only saw him because he was able to jump higher than the other animals, and he could see over the top of the hedge into Stickly-Prickly's place. "Hey, fellow animals of Bollington," said the frog. "There's something curious going on outside that house over there."
"What is taking place there, Mr. Frog?"
asked Painted Jaguar as he paused from hanging the lights up from the branches of the trees.
"Well, I think that you've got to see this with your own eyes to believe it,"
replied the frog. And with that, he and several of the animals of Bollington crept silently towards Stickly-Prickly Hedgehog's house. As they peered through the hedge, what a sight met their eyes! There was Stickly-Prickly rolling and rolling and rolling about in the front garden among the leaves. However, the leaves were so dry that when Stickly-Prickly rolled over them, his spikes merely chopped them in two, and none of the leaves were sticking to him. In time, the horse walked by and saw the animals peering through the hedge. So he asked them, "May I inquire as to what you are doing?"
"Hello, Mr. Horse," said the frog. "I think you should see this."
And with that, the horse carefully put his head sideways towards the hedge and peered through with his left eye.
"Good heavens," said the horse. "I believe that Stickly-Prickly Hedgehog has lost the plot."
"Yes, it certainly does seem to be that way, Mr. Horse,"
agreed Painted Jaguar. Eventually, Stickly-Prickly Hedgehog realized that the leaves were never going to stick to him, as he had hoped. So he sat down on the ground and thought really hard about what to do next. Then, all of a sudden, it came to him in a flash. If he was covered in fur, then the spiky needles on his body wouldn't be dangerous anymore. But how could he get fur on his body? He couldn't grow any like Winston can. He knew that. So where would there be lots of fur? Of course, he thought to himself, he should go to the Slow and Solid Tortoise's Barbershop. That's where the animals in Bollington would go for a fur cut. He knew that there'd be lots of animal fur lying around on the floor that nobody would want, so he could just use that. So, Stickly Prickly put on his old battered and torn little hedgehog hat and began walking to Slow and Solid Tortoise's Barbershop. The animals who had been watching Stickly Prickly from the hedge now saw him walk, carefully, of course, down the road in the direction of the barbershop. Well, I don't know about you, but I want to see what happens next, said the frog. Indeed, said the horse. I think we should keep an eye on this chap to make sure he doesn't hurt himself. This is very odd behavior, to be sure. So, the animals walked a distance behind Stickly Prickly and followed him all the way to the Slow and Solid Tortoise's barbershop. When he arrived, Stickly Prickly Hedgehog walked inside and said to the owner, Good day, Mr. Tortoise. May I ask a favor of you? He's woken up. Yes, it's because it's so exciting, isn't it, Winston? Okay. Slow and Solid Tortoise slowly turned around as he was giving a rabbit a trim around the ears. Hello, Mr. Hedgehog, he said. Certainly. How can I be of assistance? Slow and Solid Tortoise was actually quite surprised to see Stickly Prickly, as he had barely seen him before and had never certainly spoken to him previously. Well, I see there's a lot of fur on the floor here, and I was wondering, may I use it? Asked Stickly Prickly. By all means, replied Slow and Solid Tortoise. I have no use of it, so help yourself. And with that, as the animals that had followed Stickly Prickly walked into the barbershop, the hedgehog jumped into the air and into a pile of fur and began rolling around in it. He rolled and he rolled and he rolled and he rolled. The horse looked down and said, I believe that he has lost the plot. Indeed, a plot does seem to be lacking here, agreed the frog. Perhaps we should call a doctor?
Excuse me, Mr. Stickly Prickly Hedgehog, asked Painted Jaguar. What is it that you are doing? Is this a new game that you are playing? Because if it is, then I suggest that you play football instead. I think it's a lot more fun than the game you're playing.
Why, thank you, Painted Jaguar, replied Stickly Prickly. But, you see, I want to cover myself in fur so I won't be dangerous with all of my sharp, prickly needles. If I can do that, then maybe the animals will let me join in the fun this Christmas. My dear sir, said the horse, there appears to have been a misunderstanding. We thought you didn't like us because you kept so far away. Now we see that you were only doing it because you were concerned for our safety. On behalf of all of the animals in Bollington, we owe you, sir, an apology. With that, Stickly Prickly smiled the biggest smile he had ever worn before. Don't worry about wearing this fur
We'll just be careful, said Mr. Frog. That's all we have to do. You just stay how you are, Mr. Hedgehog, yeah!
Yes, indeed, said Painted Jaguar. Now, if you would like to, come with me and we can put up lots of lights and decorations around the Christmas tree.
So, Stickly Prickly Hedgehog joined the other animals and had great fun. It even started snowing as the evening wore on, which made Bollington look very pretty indeed. That evening, on Christmas Eve, the animals had a big party and made sure that Stickly Prickly was invited. And he was made the guest of honor. Sure enough, Stickly Prickly joined and had a wonderful time playing with the other animals. Admittedly, he did tear a curtain because of his sharp spiky needles, but the other animals didn't mind. Not one little bit. As the frog said at the time,
"Hey, no problem, Stickly Prickly. Accidents will happen. Merry Christmas!"
So the animals played on long into the night. Then they went home and fell fast asleep in their warm, cozy beds. As they slept, Father Christmas crept quietly from house to house, leaving lots of nice presents for them, as they had all been very good animals that year. He even left a new little hat for Stickly Prickly Hedgehog, as the old one was all battered and torn. The next morning, the animals woke up and danced with joy around Bollington, enjoying their presents. They sang and played games with each other, including Stickly Prickly Hedgehog. The animals did indeed have a very merry Christmas that year, and they all lived happily ever after. The end.